I just arrived from the Middle East about 2 hours ago. Yael Eckstein, the 35-year-old millennial Jewish mother of four, who is the president of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the largest charity in Israel, invited me to visit a part of Israel that I had never been to before. And so after a few hours of driving towards the Egyptian border, we arrived at the brave communities, the Jewish communities, bordering the Hamas and Islamic Jihad-controlled Gaza Strip. On this day, a quiet day, things looked normal. Moms pushed their children around the towns in strollers. Elderly men and women sat around a community center that I visited. They listened to music. They played board games. They drank coffee together. The playgrounds in this small little community, they were buzzing with laughter and kids being mischievous. I know something about this. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I got more sleep on the airplane than I did in a long time. Yet all these people that I saw, they all knew that at any point an excruciating siren could go off, giving that mom who was with her stroller and children 15 seconds to somehow get to a bomb shelter. Only a few weeks ago, these very communities that I visited 2 days ago, just a few weeks ago, they were under a barrage of 800 rockets fired from Gaza, the Gaza Strip, within 48 hours. Rockets largely made and supplied by the Iranians. Christians around the world had provided financial assistance to these communities. They'd gotten flak jackets for 500 of the leaders in the communities. They'd built 5,500 portable bomb shelters. So in order to help these people be a little more safe, to give them a little better chance of survival. But the rockets were just the beginning of the struggle of this community, because the terrorists, as you've probably seen, they've begun to send these incendiary balloons over the border of the Gaza Strip. And all of us know, especially those of us that have young children or grandchildren, the wonder in the eyes of a child when they look in the sky and they see a balloon floating. But these balloons, they're weapons of war. They're made to explode, to set ablaze uncontrollable fires in the fields these small communities use for their livelihood. And if that's not enough, the Israelis, they keep discovering tunnels miles long, carved deep underneath the ground, underneath the border, tunnels which the terrorists have been preparing for an ambush or to kidnap an Israeli, taking them back for ransom into the hell that they have created for themselves in the Gaza Strip. And I saw one of those tunnels. Security personnel took me on a long walk through this bright green peanut field. It was a football field away from an armed terrorist watch point just across the border. And we walked until we came to the small area that was fenced in with sheet metal. And they took a wire off of a ramshackle door and they slipped me inside, where I found the entrance to one of these terrorist tunnels that the Israelis, thank God, had captured. And obscured behind the door was the entrance, but the door said that we should not enter. The tunnel could collapse. But I was standing there and I knew I had to go in anyhow, and I had to see it with my own eyes. And so I went down inside the tunnel, and I will never forget what I saw just a few hours ago. I smelled the stale air inside that tunnel. I looked into the black darkness that went as far as my eye could see. I felt the terror that might have been had the Israelis not been fortunate enough to find it. And I felt the evil of this group, which had on this very same week that we're gathered here today, celebrated with a press release the death of an 89-year-old Jewish woman that they were able to kill. Not a Jewish soldier, an elderly Jewish grandmother. And I speak only of this evil because it's the latest evil I've witnessed within the last 72 hours. But as an advocate for religious freedom and for human rights, I've seen a lot of evil in a lot of places around the world, and I cannot begin to imagine what our world would look like if it wasn't for American hegemony, for our fierce strength and our enduring values. Our allies are strong, and our world is given hope that the brightest light on the global horizon, it still shines from sea to shining sea. Because if we don't shine that light, we can't rely on anyone else in the world to do it as we have done it in human history. And by the way, it isn't just the Gaza Strip. It's not just the remnants of ISIS in North Africa or in Syria or Boko Haram in Nigeria or the Houthis in Yemen. It's also the governments around the world that think that they can have enduring prosperity while denying unalienable rights to their people. Nations like China. China's relapse into the Cultural Revolution has now created a surveillance state like the world has never seen before. They've interred nearly 2 million Uyghur Muslims, and they have shut down in the last 6 months every one of the largest churches in the country. The only difference between the Cultural Revolution then and the one now is that now the world has welcomed China into the mainstream, trusting that she would change, and in the end, she is now changing the world. Yet the all-seeing eyes of the United States of America roam the world, seeing it all and sending still to this very day, and especially in this administration, a clear message: not on our watch. The terrorists, they will not use religion to kill the innocent in the dark corners of the world. ISIS will be obliterated. The dictators will not be able to trample on their citizens or the citizens of other nations in the name of prosperity without also facing the accountability of the United States of America. Whether previous presidents recognized it or not doesn't change the fact that the United States remains the sole superpower in the world, unmatched in our might and in our wealth, but especially because of why we're gathered here, our values. It is not our responsibility to be the policemen of the world, but it is our responsibility to be the stewards of its values. And what I want to say to you today is that there is no value more essential to our history and essential to the future than the value of religious freedom. Religious freedom is not just valuable for the role it plays here in the United States, but for the standard that it sets everywhere. It is sacrosanct. Our founders enshrined religious freedom in the first words of the first clause of our First Amendment for a reason. There would have been no America without religious freedom, and there will be no America without it. It represents the very front lines of all other freedoms. It is the ultimate check, checking all of our other checks and balances. Religious freedom ensures that our moral authority has free reign in our public discourse. Religious freedom provides moral strength to correct our own worst mistakes in our own history, to perfect our union. Religious freedom anchors our marketplace of ideas, beginning with all the deeply held religious ideas in this country, competing in a free-willing search for truth. And in America, we have always believed there is something called truth. The only chance that our politics will remain anchored in facts and not in expediency is that the moral voice of the people remains unimpeded by religious freedom. And so, in the end, I came to warn you. If, God forbid, the American chips ever fall, let me be clear. The first chip to fall will be this first freedom. And therefore, if we are to ever stand courageously for any American ideal in our country or in any other country, we must stand unflinchingly for this freedom, for religious freedom. We must say, as George Washington said to our first and oldest synagogue, the United States will give to bigotry no sanction and to persecution no assistance. We must echo the words of James Madison to 100 future generations. The religion of every man must be left to his conviction and to his conscience. And when leaders here and leaders abroad try to suppress our freedom to believe or to not believe at all, then we will meet them with disobedience on the streets and with their laws in our courts and with truth in the public square and with these words in our every breath: not on our watch. We have come too far in America. We have fought too hard and too long, and too many lives of our soldiers, which we have celebrated tonight, have been sacrificed. So we will not give up on this sacred truth because it has been given to us by our forefathers. We will never let anyone wrestle this unalienable right from the fingers of our founders or from the future of our children. And so I came here today to ask you to join me one last time. Draw one more line in the sand for every persecuted person on this planet and for every marginalized person in our nation, for present generation and for future generations, for those neglected in the corners of the world who need American hope like never before, and for those whose cheap path to money and power is on the back of the rights God gave their people. We must declare one more time with one resounding voice: for freedom we are free, and in a world of people longing to be free, we intend on staying free in the United States of America. This will not change, not on our watch, not here, not now, not ever, and that is the end of the story. Thank you.